Hello and welcome back to the GamerTime Podcast. We've actually managed to make it 2 weeks in a row this time, which is impressive. This week I'm joined by Gav. Say hello.
Hello.
And we're joined by George.
Hello.
Brilliant. We're going to try and do a 3-person one this week, just because I feel like it makes my editing life a bit easier, and hopefully we won't forget about anyone. So, I'm going to start off this week because I've been playing Orwell, and I've kind of fallen in love with it. I think it's probably potentially one of the best games I've played this year, and I feel like everyone should know about it. So, does that seem fair?
Well, what is this magical game?
Right, okay, so Orwell is a game where you play as a person sat behind a computer, basically spying on people on the internet.
That sounds all too real.
It does, and it has lots of parallels it draws with sort of our current surveillance state, and it just makes you think a lot. I recently did a review of it on our website, and I swear to God, it made me just sort of at every moment go, should I be doing this? Is this all right? Like, there's a bit where you can listen to conversations with people, but some of them are just like you coming home for dinner, basically, and you're like, I feel this is a bit wrong.
A bit voyeuristic.
Yeah, but just like, I don't need to know this, but I'm listening in just in case I hear like a key word that comes up, and I'm like, they could mean this. They're the terrorist. And
So you're basically just playing someone at a listening bank at GCHQ.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a bit scary at times, like your ramifications of like misunderstanding something that someone's written, or like that they've written when they're a bit pissed off, and they didn't really mean it. And you're like, shit. Like, it makes you think about what you're putting out on the internet, and like how it could be misconstrued. It's just really interesting.
Like if you're a student of Egyptian history and you spend a lot of time talking about ISIS on the internet.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly like that.
Yes. So yeah, I've been playing that a lot. It's got 3 episodes out, and the 4th one came out on today, which is the 10th. But I haven't played it yet. And it's out on Steam, and I'm assuming other PC platforms like GOG and stuff, but I wouldn't quote me on that one. But it's really cheap and really good, so you guys should definitely go and check it out. If only because it just makes you sort of... there's very few games that make you kind of consider how society works and whether, like, is this alright sort of thing. You're like, this stuff kind of goes on, maybe to a less extreme extent, but like, yeah, like you just by like knowing someone's like
Papers, Please.
I don't know if I think it's, yeah, it has that, it gives me the same sort of feelings as Papers, Please did, of being like, it's a bit fucked up, but like, you can sort of, it has moments where it simultaneously makes you feel a bit like a hero for like saving the day, but also kind of like a terrible person because of how you managed to do something good. You just sort of like, so I've stopped a terrorist event, kind of fucked up a bunch of people's lives, invaded privacy of a bunch of people, and yeah, was it worth it? I don't know yet. I haven't finished the full game because it's not all out, but
So it's like a kind of post-Snowden spy thriller.
well, yeah, it's called Orwell, like the George Orwell book.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where a lot of the inspiration comes from.
Hey, which book's that? Homage to Catalonia?
That's definitely the one. Yeah.
That's the one?
Yeah. I'm glad you... I'm sorry.
Sorry. I just wanted to be a dick.
I know, but I wasn't expecting
That's
you
what
to
I
say
do.
it. It's kind of slayed me this evening. What else was I was going to say something else, but you've thrown me off. Someone else say something while I'm busy chuckle to myself.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty interesting game.
So you're just reading transcripts and then looking for keywords.
Pretty much, yeah. So you look into people's like chat logs and their emails, but you also sort of browse the internet. So you go on what they call timeline, which is basically like Facebook. So you can see what people have like written on there, like their chats, like friends and stuff, and you'll be looking into one person, and then someone else that they know that you're also looking into could have said something on that blog that you'll be like, right, well, I'll pull that up. That information's interesting, and you'll put it on like your page about them. Like draws a web of how these relationships are connected. One of my only real sort of, I suppose it's only real flaws really would be like, because it's a game and it's obviously limited, you can't pull off every piece of information. So like it highlights the things that are relevant that it can actually, use, and it'll highlight some of them in yellow for any conflicting events. But like sometimes I'll read stuff and I'll like, is that relevant? Could that be it? And it's just not highlighted, so I can actually use it as like part of my investigation, which seems like a not really a complaint, because you're like, well, obviously it can't have like it has quite a lot of text in it. It has like full like newspaper articles and like fake company websites and stuff. Obviously it can't have everything on there be able to be like used in an investigation. It's obviously going to have limits, but at the same time I'm a bit like, I think this information's important. Which the game doesn't justify as important though.
I mean, I guess from what I've seen of the screenshots and stuff, it's kind of going for a bit of an immersive experience. Like it's supposed to look a lot like you're doing something like you would in real life, but I suppose the realities of being a game will brush up against that.
Yeah, they do. It has a really nice sort of like kind of like soft soundtrack that gets occasionally like intense when things are going on. You don't always really notice it in the background, and then you do, and you're like, "Fuck, shit's going down." Like it's a very effective, like, because it's just sort of quiet, like the background of like just like a lift sort of music sound, and then it'll just sort of like ramp up when like you're like scurrying through the internet trying to find some records because stuff's going on, and it's
sounds really weird to me, like the idea of like a really thrilling thing going on. I mean, I guess it's what happens these days in a kind of, like a cyber espionage environment. But the idea of some kind of really exciting spy thriller stuff happening through what we consider to be like really mundane environment, like Facebook or Twitter or something. It's kind of a weird idea to me.
Yeah, no, it's quite unusual. I wasn't expecting it to be quite as like have moments of like tension like it does, of why like. Because it has bits where you're like listening into a phone call, and then they'll be silent for a minute, and you'll be like waiting to hear what they're going to say, quite like intently, waiting to read like the next line of what the conversation is. And I didn't really think of it as going to be like this like quite intense experience, but it really is. It really does a really good job of drawing you in from like the get go, because it has all like a fake parliamentary website set of fake news headlines with like events that are happening. You can get, because there's so many like web pages you can go on. I think at the point where I have to go explore like 65 web pages or something, which is a massive number of like background information, and each of them are really detailed. So if you spend the time to like read and fully immerse yourself in it, there's a lot there to like. It's very well put together. Very well put together. Because everything you pull off gets sent to your handler, and they can misinterpret some of the things that you've said as well. So you can pull off information that you think is said in like one way, because you've pulled it out of context. They'll get an entirely different thing from it. They'll get an entirely different ending of like what's happening. It explores some really interesting like thought-provoking bits in it anyway.
Sounds like something that we're getting like really interested in, like finally, after about, everyone's been on the internet for years and years now, but I mean, I think the Orwell title just draws an interesting comparison, just because, 1984 just had this idea of like you're surrounded by like an oppressive environment, and so that intrudes, it kind of takes over your private life, like you don't have a private life anymore.
Yeah.
But I think a game like that, and a lot of stuff like Mr. Robot, like hacker-based stuff that's really popular now, like plays on this idea that we all have that our lives are private when we're just putting so much of ourselves like out there.
Yeah. I think it's like over the past few years, it's kind of like there's been more brought to people's attentions, I suppose, like sort of globally. People have sort of, through things like Mr. Robot and stuff like that, people have sort of realised, like, shit, I put quite a lot of my details on the internet. Because like in Orwell, you'll find like someone's address or something, and obviously then you can use that information to like either maybe to go to like find other web pages that have that person's address on, and their name will hit a match, or if you find like an alias of theirs, it'll hit a match when you on your search engine, so you'll be able to find other web links for them. So like it's gradually this sort of, you build like a profile on the person, and it really makes you think, like, shit, like when someone finds out some of these minor details about you, they can really build like an entire like catalogue of like who you are based on quite not that many sort of like online interactions, but they can sort of see like your background, your likes, your dislikes. Even like if they find out like your email, they can hack your email and maybe get into your bank account or something. It's very good, very good. Anyway, I've rambled on it a bit too much, I think, and basically go play it.
I just want
It's
to ask
amazing.
one last question.
Yeah.
Can you abuse the power that you're given? To kind of almost treat it in a sort of video gamey way.
Yes.
Can you just report people because you don't like them?
Kind of to the second
Like,
part.
Can you just just deliberately report? Because are there consequences for reporting someone who is innocent, basically?
Yeah. So I think each chapter has different outcomes to it. This is partly based off like the achievements on Steam that I've seen, and I'm assuming because I could have done. There are points in the story where you could make differing choices, especially because you'll find quite a lot of information that's conflicting. So in one part of it, they might be like sounding a bit like a crazy person who's really violent, but in one part they might be behaving quite serene and relaxed. So depending on what information you pass on to your handler is what their perspective of that person is. And there's quite a lot of those in the second and third episodes of putting together information that could be conflicting from what other things that you've seen that they've said. So depending on what you pass on, there are different events that can play out. But you can like I said, you can kind of game it a bit by being like a bit of a dick or something, because there are bits that are obviously not relevant information, like someone's favourite colour is red, or they've sort of rather jokingly said that they live in Wonderland or something, and you can pass those on to your handler for like no real reason. But there are also bits where you can obviously see that the information's not relevant, or like it's misinformation, that they're just blatantly lying from bits that you've read before. So if you wanted to, you could pass that on and see what the consequences are.
Does it seem like the game is building towards it seems like it's one of those. I'm like just stumbling completely over all my words here, like trying to figure out how to phrase this. But what I mean to ask, fourth attempt, is does it seem like you're railroaded at all? Like, do you think there's going to be like a variety of endings that you have to pick from, or does it seem like it'll be quite dynamic in the way it like builds and concludes?
At the moment, it feels quite dynamic. Each episode flows nicely on from the previous one. So things, because you keep your whatever information you've collected from episode to episode, and you'll keep sort of pursuing certain characters through episode to episode, building more and more information on them. So I feel like it's going to have a nice branched ending of where things could go different ways. Because the whole thing sort of starts with this terrorist event, and you're trying to investigate what's happened around it, and then to try and stop subsequent ones. So I'm thinking, because of how each episode has had a branching ending, I would be very surprised if there wasn't multiple endings and multiple ways of dealing with it. Because even at the moment, it's having the choice between passing information on and not passing it on is like such a crucial decision, especially because things are like not happening in real time, because obviously it's a game, but like it feels like things are happening in real time sometimes. So something could be going on, and if you delay in handing over information, the game's obviously has to sort of assume you haven't and compensate for that. So I think that it's going to be a running theme in the subsequent episodes. But to wait and see. I'm very excited. Tomorrow's I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play episode 4. Tomorrow being the past for the people who are listening to this podcast.
Obviously, we're very quick on the trigger here.
Yeah.
So what we've taken from that is the modern world is a dystopian hell in which the government knows everything about us. We're all jokes here at the GamerTime Podcast.
Yes.
We like a good laugh.
We do. Yeah, but it's not all grim, I suppose.
What are we if not a mirror?
Exactly. You were playing a game that was less distressing and
I suppose so. I've not had a lot to do with it. I mean, I don't know if it's really it probably is. I've recently been playing for a review on the site. Check it out when it goes up, boys and girls. You'll love it. A game called Sethian. I might be pronouncing it right, might be wrong. I don't know. There's no voice in the game. Basically, in the game, you are some kind of futuristic space linguist. And if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. You get put in like a cryo tube for 200 years and shipped out to like a deserted planet.
Yeah.
I mean, none of this is like visualized. It's stuff you learn from your journal. Because basically the way the structure of the game is, it's just you in like a computer terminal kind of look in conversation with like a computer who is seemingly the last survivor of the planet and also the only living speaker of the language of Sethianese. And so using your journal involving references to other like fictitious journals on the language that exist, you have to like decode what it's saying and then find ways to speak back to it using the character set and the punctuation and things.
Yeah.
That it sounds terrifying, but the game does it provides a lot of guidance, and there's like a dictionary and it'll always tell you what something kind of means, but you need to work out syntax and stuff.
Sounds interesting.
It's really interesting. Like, I've not got that far in it, but it's really interesting so far.
I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. It was a game, Duskers. I mean, I've been meaning to play Duskers for ages. Any of you guys played Duskers?
No,
I haven't.
So Duskers is a game where you control a bunch of robots on a ship, and then you communicate them through like a command prompt. So you'll say like, one of your droids might be indicated as droid 1. So you'll say, navigate 1 to R6, R6 being room 6, and then I'll wait for it to go there. And it's trying to work. So it's kind of you coding in like basically essentially. It sounds a bit like that. I don't know if that's correct, but it kind of reminds me of that sort of like stylized sort of trying to get to grips with it, like an entirely new language and manipulate it in certain ways.
Yeah, that does sound a bit. I mean, I guess rather than a programming language or something, this is like a literal language. But yeah, I think from what I've seen from the developer's website, I think he has experience. I think he knows Chinese. He went out there and lived or something, and the language is like quite clearly influenced by that. In the way it works, it's quite like character based.
Yeah.
And the characters, you get like 2 characters that make a word, and then it's really confusing. But yeah, it sounds quite similar to that game. It's a kind of style of game that I've been seeing a lot recently, and it's really good. Like, I mean, like this and Orwell and stuff. You know, you have a lot of like non-standard structure. You know, just something that might not have even struck someone maybe 5-10 years ago as a computer game. Like, it's really weird, but really cool at the same time.
It's a bit like a code-breaking game, isn't it? I suppose. Like you're trying to crack.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds really interesting.
In the way that a language is basically just a code, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really, really cool.
I mean, I don't know how like grim the game is, but basically, you just have the computer to talk to. And again, it's a bit like Orwell, and I don't know how like far it goes with the possibilities it offers you, because obviously at the start of the game you don't know any of the language and you just have to follow the journal. But if if you like were going in there knowing it, I wonder what you could say to it, how that would work. I don't know, like how far it like guides you, and how far its responses are completely pre-programmed. But yeah, it's like it's really.
So it wouldn't pass the Turing test then?
I don't know, but for some reason I have a sneaking suspicion he might not have developed a complete AI as well as learning, well, inventing a new language.
You never know. He might be just a really like humble developer who's thought it was something to keep quiet about.
Yeah, just this unbelievable genius who invented a new language and made a computer that talks it. that would be impressive.
Imagine working on that, and then what would you use it for? Like, life's work. Like...
Yeah, he's developed this. He's developed this thing that's really, really cool, but not very useful. So he just releases it as a Steam game.
Actually, I'd love that to be true.
Well, just the green light page, dynamic story, good graphics, an AI capable of passing the Turing test. Please vote for me.
Yeah,
I would love it.
It's like someone just votes it through and then it sells a bit. Steam sale £3. No, it's already I think about that price. It's really cheap. So, from my perspective, I'm really into language, so I like it a lot. But if you're into that at all, it's like $5, and I don't know, so like £3 million. But
though,
yeah,
by next week, that's where the exchange rate will be.
Possible. Oh dear.
Who knows
you never
what's
know.
Gonna happen.
You never know. So far in the story, I've only got a wee bit in, but like you talk to this computer, and the first thing it starts mentioning to you, you ask, "Where are all the people?" And you have to, obviously, there's a lot of weird stuff there. You have to like figure out how to actually say that, which is like.
So the aim of the game is to try and find out what's happened now that you've woken up from stasis.
Yeah, you've gone from your own planet, your home, presumably Earth or something like Earth, and you've gone on a spaceship, and you've gone to this deserted planet, and you just have to ask this computer, find out what's going on, learn the language. It is a bit weird, but yeah, so far in the game, I've only fiddled about with it for about an hour. But the computer keeps going on about how all the people on the planet underwent the Great Ascension. So either that's a complete apocalyptic extinction event, or I don't know, human instrumentality project, something like that.
Sounds really interesting.
Like, yeah, it's such a weird concept.
And I'm a big fan of like short games now. Like I struggle to like play games for like several like 100 hours at a time anymore. So I quite like a game that's just sort of contained within like a 7-hour period. It's like a good length, maybe shorter sometimes. Like I think it was I can't remember what it was now. Played my brain is not working. Titan Souls. Played Titan Souls. That was like 2.5 hours. It was lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And like I'm a big advocate of like games that are just like quite respectful of your time. They don't drag themselves on to be too long.
Yeah.
They've got a nice contained story. You can enjoy them for a period. You're done with them. It's very nice.
Yeah, something with an interesting concept, low price, and not too long.
Yeah,
Doesn't wear
I
its
like
welcome.
that. Awesome.
I've been trying to draft an article actually on like video games and their length, and also kind of how gamers perceive time. In that, like, there seems to be this, like, I mean, it's not new, but a kind of gradual move, I guess, in AAA games towards really long games.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your Ubisoft's with 2 million
God,
collectibles and everything that just last forever.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like time it's slowly become like a kind of like a marketing phrase. Like, games will be sold on, with phrases like 200 hours of content, and it's it's a meaningless phrase because it could be 200 hours of collecting every single feather in an Assassin's Creed game.
Fucking feathers.
I'd read an article recently with someone getting really upset about the word content, but I can't remember where it was actually. Just because it signifies almost nothing. Like, it doesn't signify a meaningful experience or a good experience.
People, sort of parodying hashtag content on Twitter. The Bitsocket boys do it quite a lot. Which
Yeah.
really makes me laugh.
I get content. I guess is the it's kind of like the Soylent, almost.
Yeah.
It's just
It is. It's like it's
stuff.
there. It's not
Yeah, you
necessarily
just-
good, but it's there.
I mean, yeah, it is something that interests me because I mean, when you buy a AAA game, you are dropping a lot of money, and so you do expect like a good amount of time out of it.
Well, that's
But-
the thing. Like people expect. Yeah, it's that kind of equation between more time equals better
it's
value.
always been like a weird thing. Though.
Yeah.
Like £50 when you think about it. If you think about, even if a game is about 5 hours long, that's not a bad investment, isn't £50? That's £10 an hour spent on something that you've thoroughly enjoyed. I'm alright with that. You pay that much. You pay like
then
cinema tickets are like £12 at least nowadays. Go see a film that you may or may not like for like 2 hours.
I think that's an interesting comparison. Something I think is interesting is like you buy like a film ticket and you know you're going in there about 2 hours, but with a game it's a bit different, just because it has a varying length and like I mean films vary in quality like hugely, but like I mean obviously if you have like a 5-hour game that's just like amazing, you're probably gonna like it anyway. But there's like a quality time trade-off. Like I mean, it depends obviously how much disposable income you have, because like I don't know, I'm a student. I work part time at an ASDA. Like 50 quid is like a shift's wages for me. So, like in terms of spending that on
That's true.
on 5 hours, like I'd easily spend in my pants on Twitter.
There you go. You don't need games, Gav.
I thought you meant you could easily spend that £50 on pants and Twitter, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we've got to pick one.
Tons of pants, and I'll sponsor all my tweets so more porn bots can see them.
To be fair though, I don't think I've ever bought. I've not ever, but I haven't bought a game new at release in like 5 years or something, because they're always like
Orwell.
£15-20 cheaper like a month later, and I'm not rushing to play anything like that. I need to play this, otherwise my life will end. I'm like, just wait till I can just get it for like half the price, because game prices
Here at
dive
GamerTime
so
UK,
much now.
the least enthusiastic game set.
Oh, sorry.
we're incredibly enthusiastic about games. It's just that the games happened to come out 6 months ago.
The thing is, like, why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you bother if a game it's the same game in a month? You've waited a year for it. You can wait another month. But it's half the price.
That's pre-order culture is weird.
It just seems ludicrous. Because there's such a dive now in games prices. It didn't used to be like a month-old game would be like £10-15 cheaper. Just because there's so many coming out now that
Yeah.
that's just how it is. But like, why bother? Is this? I can't think of a reason.
Well, I think part of it is
There's no
people, yeah,
reason to.
people will play to their detriment
Yeah.
in that because they've bought it for, you've dropped £50 on a game. You almost feel obligated to play it, otherwise you've wasted
that's
your money.
like the sunk cost fallacy.
And like with refunds are in a weird place with digital downloads. Like you can refund a game, kind of if you've played less than 2 hours on Steam. But I don't know, some games seem to get more and more indulgent with their introductions, that you might not have even reached. Like take an Assassin's Creed game. I think it's slightly old, but Assassin's Creed 3, like you didn't actually get to the main bit of the game where you can wander around the world until sort of 5 hours in.
Yeah, like last week I was bitching about Final Fantasy 13, and if I only had the first 2 hours of that game, I'd refund it.
It looks nice though. The
Like-
first, it's like the first few hours of Final Fantasy though, 13. They're a bit like watching a film. You just sort of chill out and you don't have to do a lot. Admittedly, if it was only 2 hours long and that
Yeah,
was
but
the
I mean,
entire game, it would be a bit disappointing. But
Yeah, I mean, if I only had 2 hours to decide whether or not I want my 50 quid back, like, I mean, and you've taught you were saying earlier about games being respectful of your time. I don't think 2 hours of guff is respectful of my time.
it's true.
So anyway, George, you said you're writing an article. You brought this up. What side of the fence do you fall on, or are you some kind of neutral arbitrator?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, it's been like I've been drawing weird spidergrams of like time to different things and what does it all mean? Like, kind of feverishly drafting it all away. So I don't know. Like, I think I'm probably further from the answer. I've just got more questions.
You have a graph.
Like,
with about
I was
8
like, yeah, I was like, do we play too much? Like, you go into like, you know, like I look at my Civ and I've played, you know, like 200 hours, which is comparatively small. You know, I've played, and you sink hundreds of hours into these games. Like, I've got friends that have 1,000 hours on Civ, and it's weird because in video game culture, that's, I mean, 1,000 hours is at the higher end, but it's like a regular amount of time.
Yeah.
And it made me think, like, if anything else, like, if you were like, oh yeah, I went fishing for 1,000 hours, like, you know, unless you're, you know, on a North Sea trawl, that's a big length of time to devote to a hobby. And I know, obviously, you know, you don't play for 100 hours straight. That's part of, you know, what makes it so digestible is the fact that games can be played in conveniently manageable chunks.
I think that's also partly though because Steam records how many hours you spend doing it. I think if somebody recorded how many hours they went fishing, and they went fishing every weekend, every Saturday for 6 hours, they'd quickly find that they did a hell of a lot of time fishing.
Actually, yeah, I think fishing was probably the worst example.
Well, no, even anything
like that's a hobby that people just sink time into because you know, you'll go fishing for a weekend and spend 8 hours a day fishing, and over a lifetime it adds up.
But anything though, like people who have a hobby where they like to watch football, they watch however many football matches a week. If they recorded that time and added it up, I reckon it wouldn't be far from people who are huge fans of certain games. I think because a lot of game stuff records how much time you spend, because I think games quite like numbers and statistics to kind of look back on and go, that's cool, that's how much time was done doing that, or X, Y, and Z. I think if you recorded people who have hobbies like in a similar way, I don't think that the difference in time would be that great. I think people like to think that
actually, yeah, I guess that's
gamers spend all their time forever and ever, so much time. How do they have it all? And you're like, well, if you think about it, what do you do in your day? Go home, maybe you watch an hour of TV or a couple of hours of TV, or maybe you watch football every week, or maybe you go dancing or something. Add up that time. I don't think that that's going to be hugely different from the amount of time I spend playing Civilization. It's just how you've chosen to spend it, and the fact that many games things record the amount of time you spend doing it.
I feel like,
yeah. Oh, sorry, Gav, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think like I'm pretty bad for it because I know when I was younger, I loved it, like game things recording my time. I just couldn't get enough. I like to know how much time I'd spent on it, but I feel like it has created like everyone wants to know how much time they spent on something. It's like, even if they didn't know how much time they'd spent on it and they thought this was a really good, complete artistic experience and it had a good runtime, and then they looked at their Steam library and they're like, oh wow, that was only 5 hours long? Like, yeah. Wow, I want a refund. Like,
out of interest, what's your guy? Can you guys see what's your thing that you've sunk most time into?
Probably either.
I can see it on Steam, but it won't
I'm
be.
I'm just having a quick look now.
It won't be a Steam game. It'll be World of Warcraft. I've spent the most time on.
Well, like,
easy.
just what does Steam tell you?
Steam tells you Rift, because I played Rift quite a lot in university, first and part of second year. I played it quite a lot.
I feel like you guys have set me up to look like a complete fucking poser, because I don't even have one game over 1,000 hours.
Oh, I don't.
My highest is.
We're all posers.
I've got 185 hours on Civ, which, judging by everyone that talks about Civ, is a tiny amount of time.
Is that your highest?
No, that's my third highest.
My highest is.
War Thunder is actually my highest. Was 362 hours.
My highest is 360 with Rift, which I haven't played for like 5 years.
My highest is 703 on World of War. Oh no, Team Fortress 2 actually. Team Fortress 2.
With 344.
And I honestly think that World of Warcraft would dwarf that, like at least double.
To be fair,
at least
there are.
I'm really surprised that was actually my top game. Like I didn't even think I played it that much. And looking down the list, there are games that I love far more. Like War Thunder is just like a. I guess it's just maybe it's just because it's something that I can just easily drop into. But there are games that I love far more, and I'm like, oh, I've only played that amount of time.
Yeah.
But like 99 hours in Fallout 4, it's weird to be thinking, oh, it's only 99 hours. I mean, I could have watched all of Game of Thrones, and then had about 20 hours spare.
You run into like a big problem when like, because obviously there's the whole thing, games as service and games as artistic product. Because like I spent 703 hours on Team Fortress 2, but like to me, I liked that time. I enjoyed that time, but it's not equivalent to like the what 2-3 hours I spent completing a game like To the Moon, which is really short but really memorable.
Because it's worth bearing in mind as well that my Steam library has 223 games in it. So like, even though one of them's high, it's spread across like another 200 that's had maybe between 16 and 30 minutes put into it.
Then you get some weird games which are like maybe War Thunder, stuff like that, like multiplayer games, and they're not so much a game as they are like almost like a weird like lifestyle thing, like especially a game like World of Warcraft.
Social experience is what
because
I used to play a game in secondary school and college A-levels, Ragnarok Online. I very rarely used to actually play the game elements of that. I used to go and hang out with people and just chat. Once you get like to be relatively good at it, I didn't really play it for the game anymore. I played it just to sort of hang out with some friends. So it becomes an entirely different experience.
Yeah, your friends or your guild or whatever on there.
Which is true of a lot of those online games and stuff. Like, I would never play Dota by myself anymore.
Yeah.
I'd only ever play it with my friends.
Well, I think with a game like Dota, like I found it weird. Like, I was talking to a friend and he said, like, he didn't enjoy Dota until 200 hours in.
Yeah, there's a very steep learning curve.
And like, I just find that really weird because it's like, I mean, that's a huge time investment, and I often think, not do we play games too much, but should we just be more? Should we value our time more? Like, you shouldn't be doing something else, but if a game, if you're 100 hours into a game and you're still going, it's all right, but I'm not really enjoying it. Like, should we just go, stop playing that game, play something that you'll enjoy?
Yeah, if I spent 200 hours wanking with sandpaper, I'd probably come to like it.
Do it.
Great experiment. Dota 2 versus sandpaper.
Twitch it. Twitch stream the whole thing.
Don't Twitch it. Set it up on like a pay-per-view stream, and I'm sure there are people that would pay to watch. Darkest corner.
I was going to say something that was like relevant, but Gav derailed it with that a little bit. I was going to say I recently finished. Recently, being like a month or two ago, finished Tales of. The recent one. Is it Zestiria? No, I can't remember. Whatever, the most recent one that's out on like new gen consoles. And after the first about 10 hours, I was like, I don't like this game. The characters are all annoying. I don't find the combat that fun, and I don't like the leveling up system. And yet, for some reason, I still finished it because I hadn't really have anything else that I wanted to play at the moment. And I was like, maybe it'll be good at the end. Maybe.
So which
Tales of I think it's Zestiria, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, Zestiria's right, I think. It's part of the long-running Tales of ... series.
Generally,
including...
I quite like Tales games, and I just didn't like this one at all. It just, usually they have like a sort of very melodramatic story, like JRPGs generally do, but the combat's kind of like this real-time system, which is usually quite enjoyable, and you get like a roster of about 8 people that you can switch between, which is usually quite fun. And I knew I didn't like it. I'd been complaining about the fact that I didn't like it and that I was resenting completing it. I still did. Still spent, 40 hours of my life. At least 30 of those going, this is fucking shit. What am I doing?
I guess that sounds weird when you consider it, but like George said, with other hobbies, like, or with I can't remember. There was a lot of talk about hobbies, so I can't remember who was actually bringing up the point. But yeah, if you were like a football fan, and let's just say your team's having a garbage season, you'll still spend like every Saturday like 2 hours watching them play football, and probably God knows how much else watching other shit teams you don't even care about play football.
That's a good point.
I don't know. I think that's slightly different in that, like, I mean, I don't know. I was going to try and pretend I knew what it was like to support a football team, but I don't. But I'm going to say I think there's a more like emotional value loyalty thing, whereas a game is just a product that you've purchased.
I guess. I mean, it's that does make it different that it's a product, but I don't know. I mean, if you're into like maybe TV would be a better example. Like if you're like a proper quotation marks television fan who watches a lot of TV series, and like that's like their hobby. They go on the internet, they do that, like they have their Twitters about that. You know what I mean? That's like that's like the identity that they've invested in. They will spend a lot of time watching a TV series that's, capital S shit that they don't really care about, just so they can either have a whinge about it or say they've completed it.
And the similar thing's true for.
I mean, I watch a lot of TV, but I'm very picky about it. Like I drop stuff. I like. Often not intentionally, like I watch loads of stuff, and often I simply just don't go back to it because I'll be like, doesn't hold my attention.
And I do think that had I been playing Tales in like February, I would have played the first 10 hours and gone, no, I'm not having this. I'm not going to go back to it. I think it was partly because of when it was released, but also part of me was like, these games are generally good. I generally enjoy them. There must be a point in this game where it's going to become like other games. It had a similar team were making it, similar people. So you kind of rely on them and sort of think like they know what they're doing. They can pull this out. Like might have a rocky like 10 hours, which sounds like a long time to sort of give someone the benefit of the doubt. But then I still did, and I was just like, at the end I was just like, what have you done? This is rubbish. I think you do still kind of have that emotional connection in games because it's not the same as like a product like a chair or a table. Like it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think part of it is I think people should be less emotional about games. Because I was reading an article and it was talking about Bethesda's review policy, and they were saying about not giving out review copies, and they were saying this is a terrible thing and it's a bad sign for the industry. But Bethesda is a beloved game publisher, and so people are kind of happy to ignore it because some of their favorite Bethesda's games are hugely successful. And I think often we need to be, and I think they had a great point in that we should perhaps be less emotional about games, specifically the companies, because we see lots of marketing videos of them being lovely people, and I'm sure they are, but they are, they're a company trying to sell a product.
Yeah.
I think we can be we can almost be emotionally blinded because oh no, they're those are the good guys.
Yeah,
no, they're neutral.
When you spend a lot of time with a game, and like if you've played a game that they've made, I think it's a pretty unique thing with games that, I mean, people buy into like film and TV and stuff, but with a game you have an experience, and maybe you spend like 50 hours with the last game, and then there's like a combination of being like, I really like the last one and I got my money's worth out of it, and I like the developer and I like their ideas, and then if you carry that forward, sometimes I end up making bad decisions.
Yeah, it's like you've invested so much time, and you have all the fond memories that you're willing to ignore missteps.
Yeah, I think it pulls back to that sort of, you mentioned before about like the difference between games being art and not art, because like it's like in like the music industry, for example, if someone has like a couple of bad tracks in an album, but like some really good ones, you're gonna remember the good parts of it rather than the bad aspects and their sort of overall image in general. I think that's why it's hard with game developers, is because you know the developers, like the company's name, a lot more than you know individual developers. Like you'll get some big ones like Tim Schafer and stuff that like have like memorable people, but generally they're kind of hidden. You don't really know who they are. You see their names appear maybe once at the end of a game that you're probably not paying attention to at the end of it, at the credits. And just because it's the same company doesn't mean it's the same people doing it.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, I mean, sometimes companies get like totally gutted and just publish stuff under the same name but with like a totally different team. So
it's a hard one to... I can't remember what the point of this conversation was now. I can't remember how we got to this point, but it's a hard one to I
think it's
just sort of say.
I think people should be less emotionally attached to
companies. So it's a hard one to say.
Well, not like,
I'd agree, but I'm super guilty of it myself.
Oh yeah,
I think we all are.
Definitely.
Like, I'll eat up any old shit that Hideo Kojima makes. Even if it's awful, I'll like it. I'm just a bad person like that. But I think everyone is to a certain degree, because games are weird. Like, I mean, I don't know if we want to just keep going on this because the time is somewhat limited, but games are weird compared to just about everything else. I mean, if you consider the our games art argument, the thing is, everything else, you don't have to ask that of anything. Like, even if it's a shit album, even if it's fucking... what's a really bad musician? Like, even if...
Nickelback.
If Nickelback make an album, and even by Nickelback standards, it's awful. Like, you don't ask, is this album art? It's like, it's music. But I feel like the reason games are often considered not to be, even aside from all the other issues, is just they're made by so many people. There's like such a dilution of the kind of auteur element that we put into everything else, into music, into film, into books.
I totally agree. I think a lot of games lack that sort of director having a real vision of something at the end. So quite often you'll get like 200 people all making something, and then it all being put together eventually.
It's just the nature of the medium, really. Like, you can't...
At the same time, I finished Uncharted 4 recently, and I felt that was like a stellar example of something that had direction the entire way through, and you could tell that it had one person or a couple of people really thinking about how everything was going to be shot and really overseeing it closely and ensuring that it wasn't going to be this sort of like massive ball of things of everybody's different work being tried to squish together without any cohesion.
Yeah. There's a really weird like interaction in games that I don't think is present in any other medium between artistry and kind of like diffused artistry with all these different people, and like our own experience and like the money we put into it and the personal investment. Like it's such a weird medium.
Yeah, no, it is.
I think it's the fact that there is like it's this weird sort of it is so almost mainstream, yet there is still so much the idea of the gaming subculture. Like I think in the weird connection between game developers and the players feels a lot closer than, say, people that go to watch a film and not the film company, but the director that makes it. Like, you don't. They feel very separate, whereas we kind of like to imagine that we're in this sort of far smaller community where like it's us and the developers, they're giving us stuff, whereas we don't do that with film or television. Like, sometimes they'll be like, the fans want this, and I think it's similar to music in that respect, where it's you feel very you almost have that sort of closeness with the band because they're a small group of people that you can kind of you have that you have that sort of faux kind of personal knowledge of.
Yeah.
There's it's that weird closeness that you don't really see
Yeah.
anywhere else between the consumer
Yeah, I
and
think you
the
said it
companies.
before about that, that sort of relationship.
And it's almost an
Yeah,
illusion,
because
I
I
think.
think companies have this, especially games companies. You don't see it in a lot of other media of like backlash, sort of something happening that fans, in inverted commas, have decided they don't like for one reason or another. Like, for example, when DMC was being developed, the amount of bullshit that came out of that was just astonishing. And that game is fucking amazing, DMC. It's by far the best Devil May Cry game.
Whoa.
Hands down,
Whoa.
it has the most enjoyable combat system. It looks
Whoa.
amazing. It actually has a story that you can sort of follow and has like commentary on real life. Fucking people who go on about Devil May Cry 3 sometimes. I love that game. It is brilliant. But you get eaten by a fucking whale flying through the air, and you climb you climb a tower for some reason that's there. You you fight random shit for no apparent reason, and like that game is madness. It's absolute madness. And like, there's never going to be a DMC 2. And that is so disappointing because that game was really good.
Yeah, I feel like
And people who whinge on about DMC 4 can just be quiet, because that game was just the same game played backwards in the second half with a different person. That is not how a game should be.
I feel like games have this weird thing of also growing up in an environment where, like, obviously they've grown up alongside things like the internet and stuff like that, so we don't feel as... I mean, we've had this weird... We've kind of gone back and forward between, like, do we feel connected to developers or don't we? But we definitely do, and that's because we hear a lot from them, especially in the Twitter age, the YouTube age, the Facebook age. We see a lot from them, and so we think, like, we're connected to them. We know how to talk to them, and that we'll get a response. And so I feel like maybe also because, like, there's so many aspects to this. It's so fucking impossible to approach. But partially because of money we put in and the closeness we feel to developers, like, we feel as fans, in inverted commas, that we have a degree of artistic control rather than the developers. If they make a decision we disagree with, then they're accountable to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really, like, I think you like, if we like if fans of Star Wars, you know, that is immensely popular, but you know, the fans that, like, we, you know,
Well,
isn't quite that same ownership. Like, well, like, I mean, people like to think, people like to think like we do, but it's not quite the same in that, like, fans loved. We don't quite have the connection. Like, we talk about it loads and hope that, you know, J.J. Abrams will, you know, or back when Force Awakens was being made, would respond, but it's not quite on the same level. Like, like the Total War series, the most recent entry, Total Warhammer, like, their marketing team did like a really impressive job, and like, they always crop up on the subreddit, and that was a game that had a massive backlash against it initially due to
Blood for the Blood
about,
God DLC.
pre-order bonuses.
Yeah.
And well, it continues to, but their, you know, like, their marketing guys actually show up all the time in, you know, in the forums and on the subreddit, and literally just engage with with the
Total
fans
War series
and try and kind of smooth it out. Like, you wouldn't have, like, after the Star Wars: The Force Awakens was released, you know, people had strong feelings about it, but, you know, J.J. Abrams didn't show up in forums to, or even, you know, even the marketing team for Disney didn't show up in the forums to be like, hey guys, you know, this is what we think, and here's what we want to do for you. And I guess it's different because, you know, Disney are huge, and I mean, Creative Assembly are, you know, a decent sized games company, but not quite on the same scale. But they're still a very sort of direct conversation, and I was almost really impressed with how these guys, who are pretty awesome at their job, like, took the subreddit was spitting blood at the fact that a big like, what they perceived as a big chunk of the game had been supposedly cut out in order for
Well, it wasn't
to be
spitting
reserved
blood.
for a
It was
pre-order
just
bonus.
spitting
Went
spit
from-
until it paid £3 for blood DLC.
Oh no, this was separate. So this was the Chaos faction,
that's
who were like
good.
the poster boys.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah, like they were angry about it, but
Yeah,
turned around to becoming the biggest supporters and kind of have literally had in-joke. I mean, still do have in-jokes with
Community management
with the
there.
guys in the marketing team.
I feel like stuff like this is weird because to again just kind of generalize it really a lot, because this is a big subject and I feel like we could go on for hours about it, but like with a game you have such like there's no, I mean obviously with films and music and stuff there's like ultra fans who take it really seriously, but on average I think the experience is of a created artistic product that you're experiencing from a person. It's kind of isolated from you. Maybe it's different like with books and stuff, sometimes you have a very personal experience, but with the way games work, the way they kind of operate with the player is kind of, you experience it, you play it, you're in control of it, and so your experience of it's really personal, like, and so if you really like a game you end up forming like a really weird strong emotional bond to it. Like I mean like you said with Star Wars, I mean when the prequels came out, people were like real big fans were raging about it because they were kind of shit. So they had a very close connection, but ultimately in the end it's not like, I don't know, I feel like there's a kind of different connection between a film fan and a film which they can recognize to be shit, and a game which
there's sorry.
Do you think it's because this kind of games as a service, because as things become more digital and updates can be rolled out faster, like we all perceive to see the results of our efforts online. So we go, this is broken, or this needs to be changed, and then the following week the update is rolled out and it's fixed.
Rather than there being like a bad part of a game, and we look at it and we're like, oh, it's just a bad part of the game, I guess the game's worse now. It's like, there's a bad part of the game, why isn't it different? Why can't they change it?
Yeah. There's a certain amount of like entitlement, I feel, amongst like certain groups of like there was never a point of people who disliked the Star Wars Episode 1 that they were going to change the subsequent films because of these people's views. They were never going to do that. However, that happens in the games industry where people go, oh, maybe we should change that or something. Maybe because I think that fans have a lot more power than you'd sort of expect them to have for something like this. Like, what the fuck do they know? They're not games developers. Like, what are they talking about? You wouldn't go to a surgeon and go, I don't think you're doing that right, mate. They should take out the spleen instead. What are you doing?
I feel like it's a bit of a good thing, but a bit of a bad thing.
I think it can be both, yeah. But I think it's you see it often with people who have like visceral reactions, and like it's often just extremes. You have like people who vehemently hate it, or people who are totally obsessed with it. You very rarely hear of or see people who are kind of that sort of middle ground, because they don't care. They're not gonna like talk about it or like speak out. You're just not gonna hear from them as often as you are going to hear from like people who are passionately angry or passionately in love with it or something. So it's a weird middle ground that you don't hear from.
I think on the thing of entitlement, I was thinking like how we often perceive that something's been taken away from us, where we say, oh, this was cut out to be reserved for pre-order bonus, or this DLC should have been in the game. And I think there is an argument, there is an argument about kind of what is bad practice when it comes to that sense. But you would never transfer that like over to maybe like another medium, or like if you talked to someone about who isn't interested in video games, if you talk to them about it and say, like, I think they would just not understand, like, they would find it so alien. Like if you were like, oh, it's so annoying they've put this DLC is bad, or people would just be like, oh, well, just don't buy it.
Yeah.
And I think that emotional connection with the subject matter, like, kind of cloud's eye view. Like, so many people would just be like, oh, you know, people hate skins in video games. They hate that you'll charge for keys in CS:GO. I mean, if you talk to someone about it, they'd just be like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Part of it's just that there's
Pretty
such
much.
a culture of pre-ordering in video games that there isn't anywhere else. Like, a lot of the time it's like, ooh, this game's interesting to me. So it's like a year in advance you've decided I'm buying it. Rather than being like, I'll wait till it's out, see if it's good.
Yeah. I think it's because, like, you see more, like betas and, like, coverage of, like, full bits of it. Like, in a film, you'll see, like, maybe 3 trailers that are about, in total length, maybe 5 minutes, if you're lucky. Of, like, bits chopped together, and often bits that you see again. Whereas in, like, for a game, you can see someone play like a full level demo of like an hour and a half, which could convert to being like a tenth of the entire thing, and like one single sitting or something. There's that difference in like in build up almost of how they're produced.
Speaking of playing a game demo, that's the one thing I've been playing this week. Was a very early access build of a game that's currently on Kickstarter, or potentially just came out of Kickstarter, depending on when this releases. But it's a game called Lost Ember.
Yeah.
And it's basically sort of marketed as this big sort of story game, where basically you're meant to you explore a world. And kind of discover the story of what's happened. A bit like Sethian, Gav, that you were saying, where you kind of wake up and you have to discover the mystery through this kind of unique method of storytelling.
I've seen the picture. Do you play as a fox or a wolf?
Yeah, you play. So the tagline is "Nature claimed back the post-apocalyptic realm of a fallen civilization. Play a wolf and possess other animals to uncover your destiny." And it's a weird game. Like, it's a weird game in that there's very little to actually do. So I mean, well, at least in the preview anyway. So the preview I got was about 10 minutes, and it was kind of the very intro of the game. Like, it basically just takes you to the title splash. But yeah, the idea is you wake up and you're a wolf and you have a spirit guide. And you go on this story-driven exploration adventure to discover what happened.
Is your spirit guide a human?
No, it's this sort of ball of light
okay.
that just sort of talks to you and kind of floats nearby.
Just wondered, because like people have spirit animals, and if the opposite was true. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So you play as a wolf, and you basically just walk around, and then. It seemed like basically the game is sort of promising this big sort of story, and the story seems to be what the point of the game is. Like the gameplay in the preview was very minimal. It was basically walking from point A to point B, first as a wolf, and then you get to possess a sort of turtle pangolin mole thing. It was a bit like a mole, but it had a hard shell.
Cool.
And then you get to be the wolf again, and then you possess a bird.
I love pangolins. They're like the best animals.
And then, but you don't really do. The preview, you don't really do very much as them. You basically they are just a tool to get you through the world. And it's a very nice looking game. It's not incredible, and the preview is a bit glitchy. But that's the thing. Reading through the Kickstarter, there's a lot of it talks of the mystery and this kind of unique storytelling. So I was expecting at least to be teased with this kind of grand story, and to kind of find this unique way of storytelling that it sounded like you discovered in Sethian, but there was really nothing, and it didn't. There was no kind of hook in the preview. It's you basically kind of wake up and it says you're the last of this mysterious civilization. Well, actually, I'm not even. It was very unclear as to who you actually were. Basically, you wake up and you follow the spirit guide, and he says there's an ancient civilization. It's gone. And it's this kind of game that I feel like it wants you to kind of be awed at these big moments where you walk out of the undergrowth as the wolf, and suddenly you kind of see this great kind of natural landscape. And there were I think there were 2 or 3 moments like that where it kind of wants you to go wow as you kind of look around, but it never really quite pulled it off, other than one moment which is the end of the preview, and you get to be a bird. You possess this bird and you fly into this very sort of wooded canyon that's almost sort of reminiscent of the trees in the sort of tree forest in Avatar. And you fly through, and then suddenly these flocks of tropical birds fly out with you, and you're kind of surrounded by colour, and it's all very pretty. And then it splashes a title. But the actual, that was the thing. The story just, nothing was.
There was nothing there to grab you. I think that's an interesting thing.
It basically said there was a civilization here, but I don't know. I was expecting some perhaps innovative way of discovering, the story, and wandering around the world. There wasn't really anything, and the story was just told through either exposition from the little spirit thing floating next to you, or cutscenes. And so perhaps there'll be more discovery to be done in the full game. But their preview was basically a sort of nice walk, but without.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of games try and go for, the sort of the mysterious Dark Souls kind of. That's a bad way to describe it because it's really recent. But you know what I mean, like sort of shrouded in mystery. You have to piece it together. But yeah, I guess that's kind of shot for that and missed it maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they basically you sort of walk through this natural world, this natural landscape, and eventually you get to a point, and you can kind of see this not particularly exciting looking kind of old ruin, but it's basically just kind of square pile of stones with sort of one or two broken square pillars, and you walk onto it, and the spirit guide kind of gives you a sort of holographic view of what the civilization used to look like. But it's not that. It's basically he kind of provides a rope bridge that kind of was once there, and then talks about very briefly about this kind of nice society where the strong used to work in the mines, and those who, were elderly or sick, got given easy jobs, and everyone was happy. And you can kind of see very other small bits of ruin off in the kind of distance and the skybox, but it keeps them out of focus, and so you can kind of see these this red glow because he kind of rebuilds this rope bridge that you eventually walk across in this kind of red sort of holographic style, and so you can kind of see bits of it have been rebuilt, but there's nothing that interesting going on, and so you're not like, ooh, what happened here? It's just place.
I think that. Sorry, go on.
Oh, okay. It sounds really interesting because I love the concept sounds interesting. I love the bits in games when you go about like ruins and stuff. I've always really enjoyed those.
Yeah, same. Oh.
I feel like I've oversold the ruins because you literally get it's a staircase up to a sort of square platform. That's about it, and then you walk across a rope bridge.
I think that's a really interesting thing though, because games as a medium, like they've just expanded really quickly. Like if you think about like other mediums that suddenly have like hundreds of like releases that are easily accessible quickly, you're not gonna have. Not everyone can be like a good director or like a really good writer, because especially if they've already have this skill of trying to be a really good coder. Having someone who is so multi-talented is going to be quite rare, or multi-skilled. Talented sounds like they're born with it, but like that have these multiple skills of being able to have great direction and great storytelling while also being able to create this world out of digital nonsense.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like there's not many other mediums where like they're sort of related skills, but they're quite different as well. Like you won't have someone very often who is a drummer in a band, but is also really good at filming the music videos. That's not a usual. I mean, I'm sure it does happen sometimes, but it's not a common occurrence. Whereas games as a medium sort of expect that from people, that you'll be able to like come up with a great story, code it, have.
Well, it's not. The story
no,
was
I'm
bad.
not saying it is,
just
but
there was
Set
very little of it presented.
But that's kind of my point of like
in a like a very standard
like pacing
way.
and like trying to innovate. Like you're already trying to do so much just by making a game in the first place.
It
as opposed to lots of other
sounds
things.
to me like the game was trying to just like maybe. Well, I hope it sounds like it's just trying to tease you, and the actual game will have more in it.
Yeah, like it because that's the thing. The whole preview lasted about.
Oh right, okay. So not very extensive.
10 minutes. So it's a very very little to go on. I don't know. I was kind of hoping for more, just based on the Kickstarter page and kind of what they were kind of trying to compare it to what they
it's
kind of
done quite
promised.
well on Kickstarter, I think. So
yeah, it doubled its. I think its initial goal was 100,000 euros. And when I last checked, it had reached 250.
So that's pretty good. It could just be that.
I think it had it had 3 stretch goals.
I mean, it's only the.
So I think they set
preview.
100,000 increments.
Yeah, and it's only the preview beta thing. So goodness knows what the finished one could be like. 'Cause, like, games can change radically at any point. Really, can sort of go off and like develop in different ways. I mean, they seem like they've got like a base, but they could go anywhere with it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it being a kind of relaxing game that, you know, if you kind of smooth everything out, then it's just a nice game where you get to be an animal and just kind of have a nice time.
Cool.
I just think that, you know, just go outside and have a walk.
So you say that, but I quite like walking simulator games. I quite like them as a genre. I find them really relaxing.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I guess I can see it being a very good relaxing game, and perhaps, you know, that's what the funders want.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
When
It's
someone-
different in
Do you
that
know
way.
when they're expected to release it fully?
I'm not actually sure. I will jump
In
on
the
Kickstarter
meantime,
page.
I'll express a brief opinion of mine that is like, when I hear a game about exploring ruins and stuff, I don't know. Did you guys play Hyper Light Drifter? Because I liked that game a lot.
No, I didn't. No.
And basically, it had a lot of ruins in it. But basically, the idea was that basically awful things had happened. And so the idea of a game like that being relaxing rather than horrific. Don't know if it's up my alley. When's it coming out then? Bastards.
They haven't said, but it will be funded as of November 14th.
Keep an eye on it. Sounds interesting.
And yeah, for a pledge of €20, you can get a digital copy of the game on your choice of platform.
Yeah, that's good.
As long as those choices are PC, PS4, or Xbox One.
If the developers are
then you'll get a thank
listening,
you with
please give
credits.
us a review copy, even though we didn't like the preview.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the first time I played it, I did fall asleep. But I was very tired, and I think it was more to do with my tiredness than... Because it has a very, like, pleasant soundtrack. It's just kind of
Lulled
relaxing.
to sleep, did it? Anyway, let's... what should we do? We're going to do the dungeon.
We run out of time again.
Does anybody have a thing they want to put in the dungeon? Well, actually, I'll explain what the dungeon is. You guys get your thinking
Okay.
hats on. And, yeah. So basically the dungeon is going to be a thing we're going to try and do, maybe not every week, frequently, I'll go with, as a very vague way of putting it. It's going to be where we're going to put something from gaming and games culture, or to do with a game, or maybe a specific game, or something like that. And we're going to put it in a deep, dark hole in the ground and bury it. And it's going to be dead forever. And it's going to be like it never existed. So these two are going to just come up with something that they dislike and want to bin. Now.
Do you have something, George?
Did I give you a time?
No? Good.
I do.
Give me more
actually.
time.
You're a saviour.
It's a very just tiny pet peeve, but when a game releases a physical copy of a game, put the game in the physical copy. If, like, I bought Fallout 4, I put it as a disc, I put it into the disk drive, and then it was like, congratulations, you have unlocked Fallout 4 on Steam, and then it proceeded to download Fallout 4.
It does seem like a waste of a disc, doesn't it? You're like, they could have just saved money on this and made the game cheaper.
And it's, I mean, like, for a start, I mean, if you have bad internet connection and so are reliant on physical copies of a game for getting it installed in timely fashion, then, you know, that sort of thing is incredibly annoying.
Yeah, it is annoying. Because, like, whenever I rent a new game or something for my PS4, I always put it in the night before and then put it on reset mode so it can install whatever it wants to do so I can actually play it at a later date. It's like when I got Bloodborne or The Witcher 3, it was like, right, got to install like 40 gig. I'll play these tomorrow. It's a bit like, why is it not all just on the disc? Is a bit frustrating. I get what you mean. Gav, have you got...
I've got something. Do you know... Right, I like last week, I've been playing Persona 4 again, and I think in any stage of game development, you should always think to yourself, how can I make the player go through the lowest possible number of stages to achieve something simple? When your game has just irritating fluff that doesn't need to be there, that kind of just wastes your time, that gets on my nerves.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you go around the town, you come out of school, and you know, you see the map and stuff, but you can't, when you're in a place with subdivisions, you can press square and go in between the subdivisions of that area. But if you want to go anywhere else, you have to go there, into the map, into that area, square, into the next area. It's just tedious.
Tedious menus.
I think Just Cause 2 had that problem where if you wanted to essentially use the shop, which was this kind of arms dealer that would shop in a helicopter, you had to use a sort of flare signal, and then you'd see a cutscene of him showing up, and then you could only buy items one at a time.
Yeah.
And so that would involve buying an item, cutscene of the item appearing, another signal, calling him in, cutscene of him appearing, buying the second thing.
That sounds...
Cutscene, and it was infuriating.
Yeah, there's no need for it to be there, except to waste your time.
Yeah, that sounds frustrating. Ooh, it's a tough choice. I'm going to have to pick one of them to be buried forever and dead. Honestly, though, I think I'm going to go with George and the whole, like, not having something on the disc.
Fair enough. I mean, games will remain annoying forever, but your choice.
Yeah. I feel powerful now. I think partly that's, like, because, like, think about it. They didn't have the disc. They just sent you a code. How much could that save them off, like, our price we pay on the game?
Like 2p?
Yeah, but 2p per million that they distribute.
Yeah, that's true.
It's especially weird when sometimes physical copies cost less than the digital download does. You are getting...
Oh, yeah. It's like, why is that a thing? Like, on the PlayStation Store, you're like, why are you 50 quid? What are you doing, Sony? Who buys these?
Paying for the inconvenience of having to wait for delivery, basically.
Yeah. Anyway. On that sort
That's an hour 20.
It is an hour 20, but I think we've got some to chop off at the end, so...
right.
The beginning, rather. Right, that's it from us today. We've sort of rambled a little bit and gone off what we were originally talking about, but hopefully it's been fun.
I think we've solved all of gaming's problems. We've discovered that sometimes games are bad, sometimes they're good.
Yeah.
Sometimes things about games are bad, and then sometimes they're good as well.
Exactly. And I hope that was helpful to you. Yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. You can
goodbye.
If you've
Goodbye.
If you've stumbled across this podcast without the website attached, you can find us at gamertime.co.uk, or you can follow us on Twitter at gamertime.co.uk. No, I did that again. Damn it! You can find us on Twitter at GamerTime UK. That's going to happen every week now. You can follow me personally at NevadaHM, and you guys at...
You can follow me at Gavin_GTUK.
At _scruffy looking.
Super. Right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.